A legal letter drops in May 2025, and the accusations are so serious they make your blood run cold. The custody war is going nuclear, but one specific detail stops everyone in their tracks: North West, sitting all alone in a car during the Met Gala. Within hours, Kanye's team calls the whole thing a hoax and tells the world they fell for it. Just like that, the entire story collapses. But here's the thing, the damage is already done. Millions of people read that letter and millions more believed every word of it. So flip the question around for a second. Who actually made this letter and why did it spread like wildfire? Once you start pulling at that thread, you realize the hoax isn't even the real story. It's just the door to something much darker. Kim and Kanye finally walked away from their marriage in 2022, leaving behind 4 kids named North, Saint, Chicago, and Psalm. On paper, they have joint custody with shared responsibility and shared decision-making. But there is a massive gap between what a judge signs and what actually happens in real life. These two are living in completely different worlds. Kanye started going public with his side of the story almost immediately, claiming that he wasn't seeing his kids and that his access was being blocked. At one point, he put it as plainly as possible by saying he still doesn't get to see his children, which is a heavy thing to say to a global audience. He didn't just say it once, he repeated it in interviews and social media posts till it became his main narrative. Kim's camp tells a story that doesn't look anything like Kanye's version of events. Sources close to her claim that he rarely shows up when he's supposed to, and that the doors were always open for him to walk through. You have 2 parents describing the exact same custody arrangement but arriving at opposite realities, and both of them seem completely convinced that the other person is lying to the public. Then TikTok turned into a massive battlefield because Kim allowed North to start her own account. North began posting videos and quickly racked up millions of followers, but Kanye absolutely hated the idea of his daughter being a digital personality. He accused Kim of exploiting their daughter's image to build the family brand, while Kim argued that North was just being a normal kid, having fun online like everyone else her age. Everything came to a head during the Met Gala when North was spotted at the event. Kim talked about the night like it was a special bonding experience for a mother and daughter, but Kanye saw it as nothing more than a staged photo op. He felt like his daughter was being put on display for an audience that had no business being involved in her life, and it's wild how the same photos can mean 2 different things, depending on which parent is talking. This is the pattern that has defined their lives for years now. Every single co-parenting choice turns into a loud public argument that plays out on our phone screens. Whether it's what platform she uses or what events she attends, none of it stays behind closed doors, and the result is millions of strangers picking sides in a family's private pain. By the time that fake letter dropped in May 2025, the public was already primed to believe the worst. They knew the names and they knew the history of the arguments, so when a legal document appeared to confirm their biggest fears, they didn't stop to think. People saw claims that the situation was dangerous and that the kids were caught in the middle, and they hit the share button instantly without a second thought. Nobody stopped to ask who actually wrote the document or how it leaked in the first place. They didn't check if the legal language was even real because the claims fit perfectly inside the messy story they had been following for years. That is exactly why the hoax worked so well. It wasn't because of clever writing or a fancy letterhead. It was because years of real conflict had built up so much pressure that any spark was going to cause an explosion. The fake letter landed in soil that was already prepared for it. And the reason it spread so fast is the same reason it still feels gross even after being debunked. Because the nightmare it described didn't feel like fiction at all. Everything changes when Kanye decides to take the narrative into his own hands, and things start moving in a very dark direction. He goes completely public with his grievances, but it isn't just about the custody battle anymore because he starts posting rants and doing interviews that get more erratic by the second. He actually claimed that the fight for his kids is what turned him into a Nazi, and then he started releasing content that referenced Hitler and posting anti-Semitic material for the whole world to see. The fallout was instant and brutal as he got banned from social media platforms and lost his massive deal with Adidas, which meant billions of dollars just vanished from his bank account overnight. The story wasn't about a father fighting for his children anymore, and it shifted into something much harder for even his biggest fans to defend. People who were sympathetic at first started pulling back because the things coming out of his camp weren't just controversial or up for debate. These were the kind of statements that end careers permanently, but the problem was that Kanye just kept going and didn't seem to care about the bridge he was burning. If you want to see how bad it really got, you just have to look at the Piers Morgan interview where Kanye sat down to supposedly explain his side of the story. Within minutes of the cameras rolling, he was already arguing about his name, and then he completely exploded over social media follower counts in the middle of a serious conversation about his public behavior. He eventually just walked out of the room, and the whole disaster became a viral clip that turned into a meme. which only added to the image of a man who had lost all control of his own life. While all of this was happening, Kanye started claiming that powerful people were targeting him by freezing his bank accounts and trying to isolate him from the world. He framed himself as a victim who was being silenced by hidden forces that wanted him gone. And while some of that might have been true, it was impossible to separate his claims from the spiral everyone was watching in real time. Kim didn't say much publicly during this period, but she quietly increased her security to 24/7 protection and told everyone in her circle to stop posting their locations online. There was no big announcement or dramatic statement, but that deliberate tightening of security around her and the kids spoke louder than any Instagram caption ever could. This brings us back to that fake letter because the most important thing about the hoax was that it didn't actually matter if it was real or not. It confirmed what people already believed about the situation, and it slotted perfectly into a story that both sides had been feeding to the public for years through viral moments and interviews. The hoax didn't create the fear that people felt, but it gave that fear a physical document to attach itself to, which is exactly why it spread like wildfire across the internet. Even after Kanye's team called it out as a fake, the damage was already done because the debunking landed in the same chaotic space as the lie, and by then the world was already looking for the next scandal. The hoax didn't create the story out of thin air, but it revealed the tension that was already sitting underneath the surface, just waiting for someone to pull it up. This is exactly what makes the situation so much darker than your average celebrity gossip story, because the real battle was never really Kim versus Kanye. The truth is that this is about who gets to control the story of 4 children named North, Saint, Chicago, and Psalm, none of whom ever asked to be part of this circus. Every leaked letter and every public rant adds another layer of drama that these kids will have to grow up inside of for the rest of their lives. The cameras will eventually move on to a new target, and the headlines will find a different scandal to obsess over. But those 4 kids don't get to move on because they are already stuck in the middle of it. That was never part of any custody agreement, but it's the reality they're living in now. And maybe that's the most disturbing part of this entire story. Not the fake letter, not the public breakdowns, not even the custody battle playing out in front of millions. It's how easily reality itself started to blur. Because at some point, it stopped mattering what was true and what just felt true. One side saw a father being cut off from his children. The other saw a man spiraling out of control. And somewhere in the middle, there were 4 kids growing up inside a story they never asked to be part of. Think about that for a second. Every argument, every post, every headline, it doesn't just disappear, it lives online forever, waiting for the next rumor, the next leak, the next letter to bring it all back to life again. And the scariest part? The next hoax might not be so easy to debunk, because now the blueprint already exists. All it takes is the right timing, the right narrative, and a public that's already conditioned to believe the worst. So when the next truth drops onto your feed, will you question it? Or will you do what millions already did once before and hit share without thinking? Because in a world where stories spread faster than facts, the real danger isn't just what's happening behind closed doors, it's what we choose to believe outside of them.